under the Professorial Mentorship Caucus. The Professorial Mentorship Caucus is an idea and thought from our campus principal, where professors as senior academic members of the staff to share their knowledge, experience, and vision for the benefit of our researchers, both staff and students, so as to improve the overall research productivity of the campus through various engagements. One such engagement is with our researchers, where we would like our professors to share their experience and give tips on how to execute research with proper planning. Again, execution of research is not going to stop with the conduct of research experiments, but even beyond, we need to think. What should we be doing to increase the quality and visibility of the research? Can collaborations bring that quality and visibility? Can publications bring that visibility? What we need to be doing? That's what our panelists are going to share with us today. I wanted to remind us at this forum that our research plays a key role in promoting universities' ranking at the global level. The quality of research, if you go to the Times Higher Education ranking of the University of the West Indies, then you could realize how much our research environment and research quality they are contributing to the ranking of the UWI at the international platform. Now we have been ranked within the top 3.6% universities in the world. If we have to improve and move on the ladder with our ranking, certainly we have to improve our quality of research and the productivity of research. In that regard, we have been using and of course requesting the excellent professors on our campus to share their perspectives and experience with our researchers, again with both students and staff. In this case, we have three of our excellent professors and scholars in their field of specialization. Professor Michael Ramdass from the Faculty of Medical Sciences, Professor Bheshem Ramlal from the Faculty of Engineering, Professor Adesh Ramsbach from the Faculty of Science and Technology. Our first presenter is going to be Prof. Bheshem Ramlal. Prof. Bheshem Ramlal is a professor of Geospatial Information Engineering and Dean of the Faculty of Engineering. He holds a PhD in Spatial Information Science and Engineering from the University of Maine, MSc from Map and Geoinformation Production from the Netherlands, and BSc in Land Surveying from our own University of the West Indies. Professor Ramlal has published extensively in journals, books, and conferences, and has served as a reviewer and organizer for international and regional academic events. He has provided professional expertise on geospatial and mapping projects for national, regional, and international agencies, and has contributed to professional bodies and state organizations. His leadership and scholarship highlight the critical role of geospatial technologies in advancing policy development and informed decision-making. Without further ado, I invite Prof. Ramlal to share his perspectives with our participants. Over to you, Prof. Ramlal.
Thank you very much, Chair, for that generous introduction. I hope everyone can hear me and see my screen. One of the things I'd like to say right away is that I don't want our colleagues to end up like how I had a long journey. I started UWI in 1988 and only became professor in 2023. So we need to recognize that if we want to grow as we go, we need to make sure we develop appropriate strategies. And I want to speak about some of the things I think a roadmap on how we do this. So first, I'd like to suggest that what is really important is to make sure you know what you're about. I remember when I came home after a PhD in 1996 and my head of department says to me, hey, listen, There's no departmental agenda, you're on your own. And be reminded of that you need to take care of your business and to make sure you define what you're going to work on, what your claim in terms of what area you're going to focus on. And so that's important. So develop a core research area that you are happy to pursue that will uh, create impact and make sure that it's an area that you can grow into something that you're very proud of and that you can make impact. Secondly, make sure you understand the state of the art, meaning that you know what literature exists and you stay on top of your game with respect to what is happening. Now, notwithstanding all the work, I know some of you will have a heavy teaching load. You have administrative duties, you have other things, you have family issues, family responsibilities as well. But find the time to read. We read for a living, especially when it comes to our research. So, again, I know most of you know this, but make sure you read and you appreciate what exists, and you could identify the gaps. You could identify the trends. You could identify issues that are out there that need addressing. You want to make sure that your research questions that you're asking are specific, but they're also answerable. I remember someone saying, all right, I want to do a PhD research that will study cows for 10 years. That, a PhD should take you 3 years, 3.5 years. And therefore, you are not asking questions that you could make operational. You're not, relating that to the reality of the world. You also need to think in terms of macro level, meso level, micro level, every level. So do multi-level framing of your questions so that you can answer perhaps bite-sized types of questions while understanding what the holistic picture is. And it's important often to, as we say, go from the whole to the part. So you drill down once you have an understanding of big picture. Develop a research strategy. Make sure that for your particular discipline, your particular area, that you have the methods that are aligned with the kind of problems you want to address. You may have constraints. You may need data. What are some of the constraints in access? What are in some disciplines, we have what is called data poverty. How are you going to circumvent that? How are you going to work around those kinds of challenges? You have to, of course, think in terms of feasibility, available skills, available infrastructure. Not all of us will have access, especially in our UE context, access to resources, to the kind of research equipment that you may need to do what you need to do. What are the risks, therefore, in the particular research strategy you're going to develop? And so make sure whatever you're doing has rigor. Then develop a roadmap. And the roadmap can be, there are some things that are what I call low-hanging fruits, the quick win projects, the things that you can get through the door and into a paper, into a publication that is going to help you, in a short turnaround time. But then you also have to have the core agenda projects, the things that you know that will help you in more medium term type of advancement, and then the long-term projects. It's important to balance your momentum with your ambition. You can't do everything at the same time, and therefore you have to be very deliberate in managing the momentum you're going at and the ambition that you have. Build systems that will allow you to execute your agenda. So what are your milestones? What are your deliverables? What are the things that these deliverables depend on? What are the risks associated with it. Do you take time to review what you're doing? And you know, I always feel that it's really important to reflect as you go along. Take the time, pause, reflect. Am I doing this right? Is there something I could do differently to allow me to get better results that I'm more that I'm comfortable with? So maintain project management discipline. You need to be disciplined in how you approach things. Otherwise, chances are you're not likely to succeed. Um, One of the challenges I had, I applied for promotion to professor twice, once in 2018 and then again in 2023. And the first time around, the assessor says, listen, you don't have an area of concentration, you don't have a focus. So it's very important to make sure that you don't go everywhere. Don't switch topics. Every Sunday morning you get up and you say, well, I'm going to work on this and then I'm going to work on that. Think about creating something with coherence. Ensure your projects reinforce each other, build expertise in a cumulative way in an area that creates a recognizable research identity. There are people who are known as the mosquito man. There are other people who are known in terms of, geospatial. Other people are known for geophysical research. And so that's the kind of thing. Who are you in terms of a research identity? And these things are really important because you find yourself straying too much, and then the assessor will say, well, look, he is a professor of what? And that's sometimes that is what works against you. And I will tell you, when I applied the second time, I made sure that I filled in the gaps and therefore could say that this is my area of expertise. This is my research identity, and that made a big difference in terms of getting back the kind of results that I absolutely needed to get the nod from the assessors. I know Professor Ramdass is going to talk about publication and dissemination strategy, and so I wouldn't spend too much time on this, but make sure that you're clear on what would be the appropriate journals, the appropriate avenue that you're going to put your research publish your research in. These things are very important. It's important to recognize that there are funding agencies, there are organizations that are happy to fund research. You make sure that you identify who these agencies are and you try to secure funding based on their priorities, but also that aligns well with your research. You should try to develop proposals that are reusable. So, you create templates, you set up a good practice to make sure that you have things that you could reuse. And so it becomes much easier to be able to submit proposals for funding. Yes, it's investment in time and in energy, and sometimes you feel, oh gosh, why am I doing this? But if you really want to see the progress, you have to do some front loading in terms of investment. The other thing that I found extremely useful is to collaborate. And I have been able over the years to work with colleagues from maybe about 40 different departments across the university system. I mean, I joined in 1988 and I have been able, fortunately, to benefit from a lot of collaborations. And these things make a difference. Make sure that you have a good communication strategy, you keep people in your loop, and you work with them as you go along. The other thing that I feel that is really important is to make sure you anticipate failure. You don't want to have what some people call mission creep. You don't want to be going everywhere and you using scattershot methodologies. Be very careful on what you're using. Make sure that these are robust. The other thing that I've noticed that some of us perfectionists. We get paralyzed by wanting to make it perfect, and often it really doesn't matter that much. Yes, you want to get it perfect, but you also want to get it out. And so strike a balance, be more pragmatic with respect to this. So use prioritization and pruning discipline. You have to be able to prioritize certain things and kind of cut the fat if you are able to get results without having to do everything under the sun. The last thing I would say is that we need to um, evolve the agenda. We are always reassessing. We are always going back to the start and look and see whether what we are doing is appropriate, whether we can tweak it, whether we can improve it one way or the other. And it's important to refine our methods and collaborations and avoid or discontinue low value projects when necessary. A little bit of load shedding in terms of taking on too many things is important. And I will tell you that I've worked extensively as a consultant, and I suddenly realized that it's either I retire as perhaps the most I will make is a senior lecturer and do well as a consultant, or leave out a lot of the consulting and that distracting work and focus on the research and publication. And I decided very late that I will focus on the research and the publication. And it's important to know what you are about. So to end my presentation, I would say that success combines personal ambition, focus, a willingness to adapt, and perseverance. You have to invest the time and energy, otherwise it's not going to happen. And the impact comes from coherent, repeatable, and high quality work. And that's what I would add here in total. And I will stop and hand back to Professor Sarah. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ramlal, for that excellent presentation, as well as sharing some of your insightfuls and thought with our participants, which is very, very important because research and learning both are continuous process. But at the same time, we need to balance with respect to perfection and where we have to go out and we have to share when we do the writing as well as when we conduct the research. It is always better to share it and discuss it with our supervisors or with our senior colleagues in the department or in the faculty, or with the trusted collaborators outside the university, to have that discussion going and most importantly have that being implemented, which is very, very important. We may have very good plans and excellent ideas, but at the same time, if we are not going to execute it, then we are not going to be anywhere. But at the same time, we may have an excellent research conducted, but at the same time, if that is going to remain on ourselves without the publication, again, that maybe just have limited visibility. Therefore, it is very, very important for us to have that increased visibility through publication or through presentation, through the meetings or the workshops or at the conferences. All of these are well taken, Prof. Ramlal. Thank you so much. I'm asking our participants to post your questions in the chat box. I have noted a question with respect to Professor's presentation from the Faculty of Humanities and Education. We do recognize the limited presentations from the Faculty of Humanities and Education, but certainly we will be including more in the coming session so that all students will get that benefit. Thank you so much for raising that point, and it's well taken. Coming to our next panelist, Professor Adis Ramsbach. Professor Ramsbach is a professor of microbiology and plant pathology, of course, Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology. He holds a PhD in microbiology and BSc in agriculture from our own university. Since the joining in the department, he has been instrumental in establishing the microbiology MPhil and PhD programs and he has contributed significantly to biotechnology programs, starting from MSc, MPhil, and PhD. His research spans environmental microbiology, food safety, plant pathology, natural products, and antimicrobial resistance, regionally and internationally recognized. His leadership and scholarship underscore the importance of microbiology and biotechnology in advancing innovation and guiding the dialogue on research and development. He has received several awards and honors, which includes research awards from the VC as well as the Campus Principals Research Awards. Then I would like to mention one, that's the regional one, ANSA McCall Science and Technology Laureate Award as well. You would have seen him doing some videos to attract youngsters in TikTok as well as, in Instagram as well. He always, think about what is there for research from our local perspectives, or what we can do from the problems affecting our local conditions. Therefore, that's what he's going to present under this panel discussion. Over to you, Prof. Ramsbach.
Thanks, Prof. Sarah, for your kind introduction. So I would follow from Prof. Ramlal. He spoke broadly about processes, systems, structures, and so on. But I will talk a lot from my personal experience as an academic staff member in the Department of Life Sciences since 2001. And I would like to really share some personal perspective in navigating the local research ecosystem, because research has always been my passion, and I have, supervised a fair number of students. Actually, I supervise 17 PhD, supervise or co-supervise 17 PhD students and 12 MPhil students to completion. So I have a fair amount of experience working with students, and I must say, it's not an easy environment in the region as a whole for research. Right. So basically, I know we have in the audience both students and academic staff members. So my talk will basically be geared to both groups. And in many cases, the points I'll be making will be applicable to either one or both of these groups. So for academic staff members, what I would suggest is that you need to establish a research agenda. You need to focus in specific areas. That is very, very important. And you need to develop a research culture where you have graduate students, you have grant applications, regular meetings as well. That is very important to track progress of students and the team. You need to establish a team and build that team and maintain that team as much as possible. So in this environment, as I mentioned, to survive in a research, in research, you need to have that passion, because, to navigate the difficulties, if you don't have that passion, it means that you can give up at any time. Without that passion, especially for students, sometimes students may think, all right, it is an easy task. They look at research as a fantasy, basically. And when the reality hits, then they realize how difficult it is, and many of them might want to give up. So you need to have passion for research as well as passion for what you are researching on. Because you might select a topic for convenience, and then because it requires so much time and effort, you don't have that that commitment to it, and you might simply want to give up. And working in an environment as well like ours, in order to overcome some of the hurdles, you need to spend a lot of time. And I'm not advocating imbalance between personal and your professional lives, but sometimes it may require that overreach in your personal time, so to get, to address certain challenges that may pop up from time to time. But you need to be resilient. You need to not give up, persist, and obviously success will be there at the end. You may sometimes need to have, develop and utilize innovative strategies to overcome challenges as well. So for instance, you might have an easy method, but you don't have the equipment. Then you will have to innovate and use alternative methods. Sometimes you might have to develop your own methods. So this environment can also, in some level, enhance and encourage innovation, because if you want a solution, it means that you have to come up with alternative mechanisms to arrive to that solution. Prof. Ramlal mentioned our collaboration is very, very critical, and I'll be talking about this a little bit more as we go along. Part of collaboration means that you have to work with people, and strong people skills are also needed in our environment. You need to form teams. You need to access equipment. You might need technical advice. Because again, we are a small institution. Our departments are small. We might have one specialist person in a particular area that you need some assistance. So you have to be able to collaborate and get those people in your team. All right. So you need to have like respect. You need to also have good communication strategies. And sometimes you also need to share knowledge, share information, share credits. Because once you go from a single researcher to a collaborative researcher, it means that your research, you might have all the ideas, but now that you are working in a collaborative environment, it means that you have to be prepared to share your knowledge, all right, and share the credits. Again, you need to be able to adapt and adjust quickly. Sometimes you might depend on you might have a particular experiment planned, and because of maintenance issues, equipment is not functional. And so what do? You need to adapt. Again, you can change methods, you can collaborate with some other lab, but the important thing is that you have to find some way to get this experiment completed. And sometimes you might get opportunities suddenly popping up. Someone might offer you, let's say, the option of coming to their lab, maybe a foreign university. So you have to quickly grab onto those opportunities and benefit from them as well. So Prof. Ramlal talked about funding challenges, and this is very critical. We are in an environment, a region where very little money is spent for research and innovation. 0.04% of Trinidad's GDP is contributed towards research and innovation. So we don't have any national funding mechanisms like other especially developed countries. And again, the university does not have that capacity to provide much funding for research. And departmental budgets have been, significantly reduced over the last few years. So very little support can come from departments as well. So what do? We just can't rest back and give up or throw in the towel. So we need to be very aggressive in pursuing grants, and I think this is a solution. Grants are available, but you need to go after them. But also you need to have credibility as researchers. So this is where publications are also important. You need to build that credibility. Once you are recognized and you have that credibility among the scientific community, then it's much easier to get grants, all right? But also students, grants are also available. There are lots of grants. And many of my students would have gotten, like 10,000 US, 10, 20,000 US from different agencies. and that facilitated travel and conducting research in foreign universities. Okay. And obviously in these institutions, many of them have a tremendous amount of resources to support research. I still think even, and this is for academic staff members and people who might be in administration, it is still possible to have some prioritization of funds towards research. You need to be strategic in how you manage your budget, but it is still possible. I mentioned about collaboration with local and international researchers, and this is one mechanism, as I said, is very, very important in accessing resources for research. You can get support from industry as well, especially if your work is aligned to what the industry needs. That is a good avenue as well, which you can look at. My lab, we raised significant amount of money as well, doing consultancies and analytical services. And at one point, this was our primary source of funding research by students. So students help with the consultancies and analytical work, and the money that we got was used to support research activities for many of the same students as well. As I mentioned, we need advocacy at the higher level to get governments in the region to increase their allocations to research and innovation. This last point, I also want to mention, sometimes, many of us will also spend out of pocket to support research. And I've also known some students would have also contributed significantly from their own pockets to support research. And I was hesitant to include this because it's not something that we want to research, to encourage, sorry, but that is the reality at the end of the day. We don't have strong laboratory infrastructure. Many of our equipment are old and outdated. Sometimes many of our labs also don't have the full complement of equipment. Funding is important for maintenance, and we don't have funds available for basic maintenance in many cases. So again, what do we do? I mentioned our collaboration. This is critical to overcome these challenges. We can design our study to utilize whatever available resources that we have as well. And again, we have to be innovative, come up with unique solutions that will allow us to meet our research objectives within the critical infrastructure, the limitations that we are working under. We have utilized grant funding as well to purchase equipment. A couple of our labs were actually exclusively funded. The equipment were exclusively funded from grant research as well. So our next challenge that we tend to face is weak local and institutional processes. And within our system here, I'm sure many of you all know how long it takes to purchase materials, especially if you have to import. It may take you 3 to 6 months, sometimes up to a year to get your material. And that is obviously a big challenge. Sometimes we also have problems with custom clearance. Often we import frozen items, and they come in dry ice. And by the time you obtain these, or we receive these shipments, all the ice is gone and it comes hot, and the reagent is no longer, we cannot use the reagents again. Sometimes we need to import control materials like antibiotics, and approvals could take long. I have waited like 6 months, more than 6 months to get some approval at one time. Similarly with ethics approval, I know the UWI system is very efficient, but sometimes we have to get ethics approval from national bodies, and this can take long. 6 months, I know people would have waited more than a year to get ethics approval. So then what does, how can we address some of these? I talked about, I would like to mention about advanced planning. So you need to know what you need way ahead of time, and then start the ordering process. I'm also able to give perspective because I was a PhD student at UWI here, and what I did a lot was to have interventions or make personal interventions at the different offices. Um, so everyone in procurement and admin knew me because I'll be calling and find out from the different desks where is the process of clearing my purchase order has reached, and sometimes it might be sitting in someone's desk, and they might need a little prod. Okay, this is urgent. We need to get it approved. Okay, and in many cases, it would have worked and helping to fast track these processes. One thing I also want to mention is that sometimes we do have no option but to wait on your materials, but just don't take that as a holiday. You can make best use of those opportunities. So one of my students, for instance, we were waiting for reagents and we had some time, and he looked at expanding the research, altering the scope a little bit because now we had some extra time. And this new set of work that we did led to a major discovery with antibiotic adjuvants that would have led to 2 patents that we got right. We got one and one is almost there. And this has significant potential for industrial application as well. I know my time is up. These are some additional issues that I would have frequently encountered with graduate students. Many students, especially early in their time with us here, when they now join our programs, you realize that they do not always have a thorough understanding of the literature. So it means that you need to have more in-depth focus and exploration of the literature, especially in the area that you are doing your work on. Sometimes they're broad, the problem statements are very broad and vague. We also have issues with alignment between the problem, the aim and objectives, methods, and so on. Many times, students come in with big ideas that are not realistic. And I could say as a postgraduate student, I also had, when I started my study, I had these big ambitions. And then we only to realize, okay, I have to be a little bit more focused, a little bit more realistic. What I also advocate is that we need to keep up to date with advancements in technology. And in biological sciences and other chemical sciences and so on, especially with AI, the advancements are so rapid that it may be a little bit of a challenge to keep up. But I would strongly encourage that we make that effort to keep up with technology so that we will be relevant. Otherwise, you'll come out and your skill set will become obsolete in no time. Focus on time management and scientific writing is very critical as well. And as Prof. Ramdass will talk about just now, it is very important for your careers to convert your research into manuscripts. At the end of the day, in our academic environment, that is what is critical for our advancement. Okay, so that's a little bit that I want to talk to you about this afternoon, and I thank you all.
Thank you so much, Prof. Subhaka, for alluding into some of the challenges that we may have at the institution or at the local settings, especially with respect to funding and sometimes with respect to some processes. For example, if you have to get the primer, which will just cost about $80 US, but at the same time, the flight charges will be about $50 US. So that's how we have to do the research. But at the same time, you would have realized that how Prof. Ram Subhak would have been resilient to overcome some of those challenges as well. And he himself has demonstrated as an excellent scholar in the region, not only in the region, but also at the international platform, initiating so many partnerships and collaborations with overseas international universities. That is very, very important for us because we may not have all facilities and opportunities within small island developing states. At the time, the collaboration is the key and the openness is the key. And that's how we have to get our publications and get our funding and get our research being done and build the capacity in the region. And over the time, we could also bring some funds by writing the research grants. I am seeing, a lot of questions have been pouring in there. We will come back to those questions. Once again, thank you so much, Prof. Ram Subhak. And now we have Professor Michael Ramdass from the Faculty of Medical Sciences. He is a professor of surgery and he serves as a honorary consultant for general and vascular surgeon at the Port of Spain General Hospital. So when we had the Professorial Mentorship Caucus, he mentioned to the UWI community, we can contact him for any of the support or the guidance that we need at the this type of, the surgeries and other types. So he's a very, very practical man. He has been the regional course director for the Royal College of Surgeons of England since 2012, where he has introduced advanced surgical training programs throughout the Caribbean. Professor Ramdass has published over 100 international scientific papers with an H index of 17 and more than 1,500 citations. It's very, very important to know some of these citations. The reason is when we publish papers from the small island developing states, it's very difficult to get the citations because when you publish paper from the country where you have a huge population, then the citations may go up very soon. But at the same time, from the small island developing states or else with small populations, when we publish the papers, then this citation, to me, it would be equivalent to more than 10,000 citations. His leadership has advanced surgical education, including robotic-assisted surgery in Trinidad and wider region. He continues to shape surgical practice and research, mentoring future generations of Caribbean surgeons. He's a very practical man, and today he's going to share his years of experience with us. I hope we have some staff as well as students from the Faculty of Medical Sciences. Over to you, Prof. Ramdass.
Okay, thank you very much. You seeing the presentation?
Yes, it's coming up.
All right. Okay. So my topic is, I decided to talk about how to convert your research into a publication, how to create a manuscript, how to make yourself electronically registered in the system, because if you don't convert your work into a manuscript, it doesn't become read, it doesn't get recognized, nobody knows what you did. And also, if you don't register your work properly, it doesn't get cited. So you would never develop a H index. So basically, this what I just spoke about is very, very basic when you start as a researcher, as somebody who is interested in creating a publication. You must create an ORCID ID now. So it stands for Open Researcher and Contribution ID, and it's a global thing. Every researcher in the world has it. If you go to any journal website, any recognized journal website, they may ask you to create a username and password or register or sign in with your ORCID ID. Usually, if the journal is a good recognized journal, it will be connected to ORCID automatically. You could almost guarantee that. If it's one of the predatory journals, chances are it's not linked to ORCID. So it's an easy way to test the system by just if it asks you to register yourself like that. You should also create a profile on Google Scholar, because Google Scholar, as opposed to Scopus and ResearchGate, picks up a lot more citations than than the others. Scopus is a very they're very strict on what they count as a citation, but it doesn't mean that your work wasn't cited somewhere else. I personally like to look at Google Scholar because it gives you a broader uh, look at the whole thing. You're able to track your publications from the time you started publishing. Like I started publishing in 2000, where I became a lecturer in 2010, and you'll see my curve going up over the period of time all the way to 2026, and you can see how your research grew, how it's been cited, if there's a drop off in your citations. So you can actually assess yourself like that. PubMed also does it. I mean, for those who are in the medical field, we use PubMed as our search engine for research generally, or PubMed Central. Um, Obviously, you use different search engines in different faculties, but that's specific to medicine. ResearchGate is a good field, a good site that you could register on as well to get your work read and cited, and people contact you from all over the world asking for a copy of your paper. You make friends, you make contacts like that. So your work isn't only counted by the number of citations you get, but also by currently now social media and things like the number of people who read your article. So they count it in a different way, but it's not, although it may not be cited, it is highly read. So you might have 20 citations or 50 or 100 citations on your paper, but you might have 5,000 reads. So that is a good tool that you could assess your work as well. And you will find on ResearchGate that you could get your work read like that. Scopus, very tight, but what they publish on Scopus is um, what they consider the higher end of your citations. So, or the ones that's cited by highly recognized journals. The problem I have with Scopus is that Scopus leaves out a lot of your citations that Google Scholar would recognize. So if you have 500 citations on Scopus, you might have 2,000 citations on Google Scholar. So the question is, do you just throw away the 1,500? I think not. You have to recognize it because it is counted somewhere. So as a researcher, as a young researcher, you should register yourself like this and um, make sure that you have a platform to start with, right? So all these things happen when you form your ORCID. Then you connect your record, your work is discoverable. It assists you with funding, it automatically updates everything electronically as well. So if you type your name in on Google and you put in your ORCID ID, it will search you and you can pull up your CV automatically. It could creates a CV for you, in fact, right? So in terms of what an editor would look for, these are what editors look for. I mean, we are all the professors here, and I'm sure many of you are reviewers in journals, right? So you have to look for good quality work. The journal always chooses a topic that would be of interest to their readers. Naturally, you have to try to look and see what the journal likes to publish and choose your journal based on that. The scope of the journal is very important, right? Some journals are very specialized and some might be very more broad. Sometimes it tends to be easier to get your work published in a broader journal than a very high-tech journal or very specific journal, unless your work is of a very, very, very high scientific quality. Novel findings, they look for that, and things that might build on existing data. They look to make sure that it was properly read through, there are no grammatical errors, it's laid out properly, it reads well, it's formatted properly according to the journal guidelines, the notes for authors, as they refer to it. The language must always be clear and concise. You'll find if you look at predatory journals, you'll find a lot of grammatical errors in the work that they publish. And the ones that try to publish work in a few days or in a very short period of time, it's not properly edited, it's not properly examined, and although you might get the work published quickly, it is not of a high standard in my view, and you should try to maintain a standard. You will feel proud to share your work with somebody if it's well written. If it's not well written and the grammatical errors are there, I mean, you could speak for itself. You should always follow ethical standards, try to get your approvals. I know Prof just spoke about having difficulty with government bodies and to get approvals. But you have to make sure and get it because it will, the journals ask for it, especially the recognized ones. So you have to try your best to preempt that by applying in advance and trying to, do it in a way that you make some contact with editorial committee boards to ask and keep inquiring, so you don't wait and wait and wait. How do you choose a journal? Well, the picture speaks for itself. Most people will be like, oh my God, it has so many journals, I don't know what to choose. But, you have to look at a journal that you think is suitable for your work, that would be well read by your colleagues, that you want your colleagues you want the people that your target audience. So sometimes I publish in many journals, but if I have something like a surgical technique that I want to share with my colleagues around the world, we train at the Royal College of Surgeons of England. A lot of us have the FRCS exam, and they have an annals journal. And when you publish in that journal, all your colleagues around the world will see it, any country, because they have fellows everywhere. It's not just in a first world country. So for things that are benefit for the third world, I like to publish in that journal for that reason, because it reaches out to all the surgeons that who might know me, some might not know me, but they would benefit from reading it, and all of them get a copy of it. So you have to look at the aims and scope of the journal. You could choose a broad journal or a specific journal, field specific, but it depends on your specialty. If you're in engineering, if you're in, like other professors here in plant pathology and so on, those journals will be very field specific, right? But if you're doing general surgery or in medicine in a broader area, you could choose a broader journal. But I do vascular surgery, so a good bit of my work is in vascular journals. Um, you have to look at the impact factor. But as I said before, there are other factors that for the assessment of your work besides the impact factor and the number of citations now, the number of reads you get, the way it is propagated on social media. So the newer journals ask you for if you have social media websites like Facebook and Twitter and these sort of platforms to promote your work so that people read it and get easy access to it. As opposed to, in the old days where you have to go into a library and find it. So now it's a lot easier to get your work read. You must always look at the journal time to first decision, because you don't want to be sitting down for 6 months waiting for them to tell you that they don't want your paper. Always remember, a paper is always better on an editor's desk than your desk. So the longer you keep it on your desk, it does nothing, it goes nowhere, nobody reads it. If you put it on an editor's desk, somebody is reading it, somebody is dealing with it. Try to get a journal that will give you a response at least within a month or 6 weeks for the most. If you can get it sooner, fine. And remember, when you're looking at a journal, there's something called Cabell's list, where it blacklists journals for predatory publishing. They don't review it properly. They might want to charge exorbitant fees. But on the other hand, there are many well-recognized journals who are charging exorbitant fees right now, which I think is predatory in my view. But it seems to be okay because it remains on these search engines like PubMed. But like everything else, there's an element of corruption, but we don't, but you have to choose a journal that would be on easily cited and easily found and recognized on the search engines relevant to your field. Journalytics does the opposite of what Cabell does. Instead of saying this journal is bad, it says this journal is good. So if the journal may not be on Cabell's list, but it may also not be on Journalytics list, which is a gray area because it could end up on Cabell's list. So if it's on Journalytics list, it means it's been verified as a safe journal to go ahead and publish in. What you don't want to happen is you publish an article, and then you lose the work because the journal comes off the being recognized. And very important to look at subscription versus open access. The older journals naturally do subscriptions, and the more traditional ones would be subscribed to, and they are funded in that way. But the modern way now is to go with this open access policy where you would get easier, immediate access to your journals, and they classify it like this: gold, green, hybrid, and diamond. So gold access is the ones where you pay a full article processing charge. The green ones are where you don't have to pay the APC, but they give you a sort of a probationary period to wait like a year before it gets published fully online for everyone to read. Personally, I think the green is better to go with than to spend a whole set of money on the gold. But if you have the money and you're willing to take it out of your study allowance, our grants that we get, we could use some of it for publishing. But so many journals so expensive, you could use up your whole grant just on one journal. So keep that in mind. They have hybrid journals where they do a mixture of both, but some of them consider them double dipping. And then the diamond access is where you get immediate open access, but it's funded through universities, scholarship societies, and governments, and so on. And usually those would be journals that were affiliated with associations. Like in our case, the Annals of the Royal College Associations is associated with the Royal College, so it's funded through them. You get full open access right away. Initially, when they didn't have money, they used to give you the probationary period, but now they go ahead and publish it because it's funded. So you can decide whether you want to go with subscription or this way. But whatever it is, just know that you don't want something that exorbitant. Always look at your notes for authors, your submission guidelines, because each journal wants things done a certain way. So if you're going to structure the paper, you don't want to write it and then have to rewrite it. So if you think you're going to send it to a journal A, you look at the notes for authors and you follow the notes for authors. So you will structure your paper in that way. Sometimes a good thing to do sometimes is try to aim for a higher journal and then move down, or you could go to one in between and then move up, because sometimes you might get the article rejected, but they get good comments from the reviewers. So when you get it reviewed and you change your article to suit, you might be able to get it in a journal that has a higher impact factor. So you can play the game with them like that. So you always follow these things: structure, layout, figures, tables, editorial policies. Right? When you're doing your tables, make sure it's clear and concise, numbered properly, nice legends, follow the notes for authors. Sometimes they don't want the legends in the table, they want it somewhere else. And if you just follow these things, you wouldn't get your paper rejected. Always remember, a good journal would take you through proper editing, reviewing, show you how to improve your manuscript. You'll get reviewers, and I submitted to almost every medical journal you can think about over my time, as I've been publishing since 2000. It's 26 years now, 27 years actually. And some journals would just reject you because they say, look, this is not good. We don't believe what you did. We don't think this is sensible. Throw it away. But a good journal would give you a comment and say, look, this could be improved. We could restructure this paper in a different way. We could show you how to analyze your data a different way. And basically you give it, they throw it back to you and you have to fix it. And one of the good journal series that I find does that is a German series called Theme, Thieme. And they have excellent reviewers. They don't just throw away a paper, they show you how to improve it, how to bring it up to standard, how to rewrite it, how to analyze it. And you actually learn from them in the process. And to me, that's what is a good journal. Because you could end up with a journal that just taking your work because they want your money. They don't review it properly. They don't fix the grammar in it. They don't show you how to improve it in any way. So, in my view, that is what you have to look for. But there's a big but. If they want you to change your conclusion, you have to defend your points and say, I don't think I want to change my conclusion. I want to maintain my conclusion, but I'll fix it to suit. So these are just the basics which I live by. Out of clutter, find simplicity. From discord, find harmony. And in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Words of the great Albert Einstein. And he actually died from a ruptured aortic aneurysm, which I fix on people regularly. And he was one of the first people to have a aortic aneurysm repair in the world. So he even let them experiment on him when in the end, and that is how it works, right? So that's my presentation. I don't know if you all found it useful, interesting, but I'll give you a perspective on how to try and convert your work into a manuscript and put it on an editor's desk, and don't leave it on your desk. And you will find you'll move forward with lots of publications quickly, and it makes you feel good, gives you a sense of accomplishment. You do well, you progress well, become unstoppable almost, and that is it.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Prof.
Yeah.
Ramdass, for that excellent presentation, right? Now, I'm sure that our participants, both, our staff as well as the students, they would have realized that from your presentation, actionizing research does not stop with execution of research, but also it extends to the publication of the research so that we are putting out there what we have done, and that will increase not only the university's visibility, but also will help to build their career by collaborating with the people, those who are working on the same research, as well as help them to move in the ladder. That's very, very important. Then also you spoke about good journal and reviewers where they help us to improve our work. Once some of the work it requires some improvement, certainly they will say that you need to conduct additional experiment before you come to us, or else they will say that you have to do this analysis and you have to submit that back to us. The same modality and the same etiquette we want from our supervisors to do with our graduate students. Our supervisors also would like to facilitate our students in such a way so that it is not just saying what is right or what is wrong, but also guiding them how to do right things. And it's an excellent presentation, Prof. Ramdass. I appreciate your presentation. And of course, all of our presenters, they have done an excellent job. Now we are entering into the discussion session. Of course, I am seeing some of the questions, and also I'm going to ask our participants, they can raise their hand and they can unmute and ask the questions. While they do so, I have some questions here, which I will read and I will ask one of the panelists to respond, or else even if all of you are going to comment on that, that will be good as well. Probably I'm asking all the panelists to come back, and Prof. Ramsubak and Prof. Ramlal. I have answered some of the questions, but I will open up the unanswered questions here, right? The first question that was asked for Prof. Ramlal, any advice on getting a large organization that is steeped in culture to move to making research-based decisions for its betterment? I ask because, as Prof. Ramlal said, the research should be operational, plus it should work towards making society better and not be in a vacuum. Prof. Ramlal?
Well, that's an extremely difficult question, because it really depends on how enlightened the leadership is in a particular organization, on whether you can convince them that their decisions should be based on facts, based on logic, based on real data, rather than what we call big. The my personal experience has been in working with certain organizations, doing what I call action research, actually embedding myself together with students, with them, show them contributing and how this helps the decisions to be more robust, and make sure that they appreciate the value of research. And hiring a research officer, for example, in one organization, we pushed to get someone who will be a research officer to support the organization in its decision making, and that made a difference in terms of making sure we can convince. What I had to do as the senior academic was to go in and do presentations at the highest level of the organization to convince them that there is value in this, and that helped to clear the way for getting other people to be absorbed in the organization, and therefore made the difference. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And I have another question that's from Malan Nangal. The question is, the internal research units at UWI appear to be good starting points to collaborate and work on applied research. How do graduate students go about connecting with and becoming members of these units? Probably I will direct this question to Prof. Ramsubak, since he collaborates with our lot of internal research centers, not only within the St. Augustine, but also with the other campuses as well. Prof. Ramsubak, yeah.
Thanks, Prof. Sarah. So these research units within campus all open for collaborations with students, with academic staff members, different departments. All that might be needed is that you send an email and express interest. Obviously, if you're a student, you will need to get permission from your supervisor first. And then it will be facilitated, I'm pretty sure. It's not a complex process at all.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, yes, I see Prof. Ramlal. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, what I would also say is this, that in fact, we have two deans on the call, and we have agreed to collaborate extensively between our two faculties. That's one. Two, we've also been aggressively signing memorandum of understanding with several organizations. So, for example, on Tuesday, UWI is signing 3 MOUs with UTT, and these MOUs provide opportunities to collaborate across institutions, but allow students to come in and work on these projects that we are embarking on. So it's important to go to your departments, who really are the engine rooms of where things happen, and make sure that you can with the various clusters that are available. The who can reach out to support the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. Also, I would like to advise the graduate students that they are free to register any courses, right, from offered from other faculties, right? But as said, you need to discuss with your supervisors and the advisory committee. Based on their advice, you can write it to the other deans or to the graduate studies and research, and we will be very happy to facilitate that. To go and do the research in other research units from the faculties. Of course, we always encourage to go and have that discussion with the directors or the heads of the centers and what type of facilities or the opportunities available in relation to your work, and by that way it can be bridged if there is any gap. Yeah, hope that answers your question. I'm seeing another question from Marlene Hines. Is it a breach if you allow ResearchGate access to a full copy of an article that is made available on another website by the publisher of that article? I will direct this question to Prof. Ramdass, since he spoke about the publications as well as about some of these databases.
What was the question?
Is it a breach if you allow ResearchGate access to a full copy of an article that is made available on another website by the publisher of the article?
Well, the publisher would outline to you whether you have open access or not. If you have full open access to the article, it states in your agreement that you could put it up on your personal website, the entire article, and ResearchGate. But if it is on a probationary period or in a subscription journal, you can't do it without permission from the journal.
Yeah, so that's what it is. It is about the policy as well as the agreement that the author would have signed with the publisher, right? If it is
So,
a
so
open access, then with that, the Common Creative License policy, the paper would be available from the publisher itself, and anyone can even use it for their theses as well, right? Even to quote or adapt some of the figures and the some of the images, right? But I would like to inform you when you write thesis, even I have seen some students, they have included the images from the published articles in their review of literature without receiving permission from them. So that is not acceptable. So the students or the supervisors, they should be aware that when someone is including images of the third party, and that they should have received approval from the author or from the publishers as per the publishing policy of that particular journal where you have taken the image to include in your thesis. That's very, very important, and we have experienced some of those in the recent years. I just wanted to say it there. Now, there are several questions with respect to grant funding, availability of grant funding, and of course, I have posted the funding opportunities available within the Caribbean as well as beyond the Caribbean. From time to time, the Graduate Studies and Research, we post some of those information in our Graduate Studies website, and Stacey office, they also send such information to the staff. So I would advise that you could pay attention to some of those emails, as well as some of them advertised through marketing and communications to know what is happening, because it is not one time that is being published. They have some timelines, and we have to be vigilant throughout the year to see what is happening. And sometimes because of the funding constraints, they may cancel the call as well. And when the funding comes, immediately they would advertise. So it is very, very important that we have to be vigilant all the time, right? While I'm looking into the questions, I will ask our professors to briefly share as well, right? Based on their experience, what they would advise. Of course, you have given, a lot of advice, right? But with respect to the grant funding, what's your advice? Because that's very important to actionize our research. probably, one by one, I will start with Prof. Ramdass, then go to Prof. Ramsubak, then Prof. Ramlal. Yeah.
You're muted, Prof.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah, it depends on your field. In terms of how you approach grant funding, I mean, usually, renowned societies usually have a list of grants that they give out, right? Depending on what field you're in, whether it be engineering or law, medicine, um, history, whatever it may be. They usually, whatever general society you're attached to, they usually have funding in some way for grants and research. Um, Corporate bodies are places you can approach as well for research, big corporate bodies. Um, University itself has a research fund, but naturally limits are attached to that. You could have a partially self-funded thing as well, depending on the cost of it. But I mean, for our point of view in medicine in particular, we tend to go to our societies. Like we in Trinidad, we have Society of Surgeons, we have the Royal College of Surgeons, we have the American College of Surgeons, and there are many grants you could access through those bodies. And then when all else fails, we have pharmaceutical companies and biomedical technical companies that involved in surgical equipment and so on, and they help to fund us in some way when we need funding. So that's from my point of view how to look at it, and you can pull it together from all different places depending on what is your budget.
Yeah, thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
Prof. Ramsubak, he has, received several research grants, so he could also give us some tips. Yeah.
Hi. So yes, so as Prof. Sarah mentioned, you really have to be vigilant. You need to understand the funding landscape. So there are sites available that have funding opportunities. You can use those. You get bulletins and emails from our Stacy and graduate studies as well from time to time. So the opportunities are there. You have to look for them. There are specialized grant agencies that manage these funds at different countries, sometimes in different regions as well. There are also private foundations. Like we would have access funding within the faculty from the Simons Foundation. This foundation has a $5 billion US to support research in pure sciences and maths, for instance. But what is important is that you need to go after the grants. So for instance, you might come up with an opportunity, you might get an opportunity to submit a grant, and you might do so and may not be successful. But don't lose heart. That is the start of the process. What you will have now, you'll have that resource, you'll have that proposal already developed, and other opportunities will come. And all you have to do now is simply modify or update your proposal, and then you can submit in short time frame, because a lot of these grant the calls are made and do not give you sufficient time. You might need to submit a proposal within 2 weeks, for instance. But if you have the proposal at hand, it means that you can quickly modify, update it, and then submit. And many cases, we would have been successful in that. We would have submitted proposals several times and failed, and eventually we would have been successful. So every 10 proposals that we submit, we might get one that is successful. But fortunately, that one might be very significant. It may run into millions of dollars. And this will sustain us for 3-4 years until we will need to get another grant to continue the process. But you constantly have to be applying and submitting these proposals.
So what I see is actually around 10 to 15% success with respect to grant funding. Therefore, we need to be vigilant and we need to be competitive and we need to be following up all the time. But the most important thing is we need to have the concept note as well as have an idea, so that it is always good to tweak to the format that is required by the funding agency. In that way, we could do that. So thank you, Prof. Prof. Ramlal.
Yeah, thank you. In addition to what our colleague said, there are local foundations like Proman Foundation, Digicel Foundation, who will give grants, and grants especially that may have a spin with respect to community development, with respect to contributing to research and development that supports, their agenda with respect to things in our context, in the Caribbean context. You do have the UNDP, for example. There's a small grants fund that you can tweak your research on a project that will suit that. So that's and their green fund, especially if you're looking at doing work in renewables and sustainability and so on. But in addition to that, we have been able to secure funding from Yara, for example, from Tringen, for example, from other industry partners. We have also been able to get funds from the Ministry of Energy. We've been able to get upwards of $8 million to support research and development and support research students with respect to renewables, with respect to carbon capture, with respect to other things. And so they have a fund that they use to do quite a bit. And so knowing that these funds exist is as important as being able to write your grant and secure the funds. So you have to, know what these funds are about and where, how to go about approaching to get it. In addition to that, we have professional organizations, international organizations, such as IEEE, that will provide grants for students. The Society for Petroleum Engineering, they also have grants. The Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. So professional organizations will also have grants. We also have the international foundations. Patrick McGovern, for example, has 10 million US dollars to focus on AI, and they're going to spread that over agencies across the region, across the world. And so it's really about how you approach. One of my colleagues was exceedingly successful. He got the most European Union funding on the entire campus because he learned how to work the system, and he had a lot of people who were working on these various projects. So it's again, it's really about strategy and paying attention and preparing the proposals in appropriately to target the particular fund. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Prof. And I have a last question, right? So, could the panelists share insights on how they approach engagements with the students that they are supervising and what initial support should look like? I think, this will be for all panelists. And with that, we can conclude this session. Let me again, start with Prof. Ramdass, then Prof. Ramsubak, then Prof. Ramlal.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it depends on the level of the student, of course. I mean, if you're dealing with somebody's undergrad or postgrad, I mean, assuming we're dealing with postgrad students
Postgrad students, yeah.
and lecturer level people who
Yeah.
have some level of experience. So, naturally, yeah, I like to just, let the person think widely on what they're interested in publishing, what their topic of interest is. Um, it may be related to the field in which they're working, right? Most of the times that would be the case. So if it was a lecturer, in my case in radiology, it would be something along the lines of a radiological study, of anatomy, anatomic anomalies, variants, or just pathology, we're describing something. So from that point of view, I like to just have this broad discussion with them, make it very informal, try to stimulate the mind, and they could think of what they want to do. And usually the person would have some idea what they would be interested in publishing or doing the research, and then you could guide them on how to structure the research, how the methodology, and make sure whatever methodology you choose, you have a statistical program to work with it. We use SPSS, and you know how to create your data set so that when you have to analyze your data, you know exactly what columns you put in what in, and it's easy to do chi-square testing or any other sort of statistical analysis. Because the worst thing you could do is create data in a form that you can't put it into SPSS or some statistical analysis program, because then you make it very difficult for yourself. So whatever you choose, once you have an idea, you develop the idea, you know that you have material to extract from some data source and or a prospective type study, and then make sure that you talk to a statistician or somebody who knows how to program or put the information into SPSS, because you don't want to end up with a whole set of data that you can't analyze.
Yeah.
In my
So
view, that's the basis of it.
yeah, how frequent do you meet with the student? Probably that could be, one of the perspectives from
How
the
frequently? I mean, I would say about at least about once every 2 weeks. I would say, at least you have to keep in touch with them as often as you could. Make sure that you stay on the phone. I mean, it's easy to contact people these days. You don't have to meet in person. You can meet on Zoom. You can meet informally on the phone. You can meet on WhatsApp.
Yeah, yeah,
so
that's true.
if I have to do it, that's the way I do it. I don't actually call a physical meeting.
Okay,
I can do a video meeting and keep in touch with the person as regularly as possible
okay.
to see how things are going. And a WhatsApp call is fine, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you, Prof. Ramsaprat.
Yeah.
Yes, so I do spend a fair amount of time with my graduate students. Now that I'm dean, it's I don't have that option again too much, but I still try as much as possible. In fact, most of my PhD and first students would have graduated within the last few years. So now I'm starting a new, I'm recruiting a new set of students. But typically I start with identifying the project as well. Students will come and express interest that they want to do postgraduate studies in a particular area. I never force a student to do a topic that they are not interested in, because as I said before, it's important that these students have that passion and that drive, that level of investment in the work, so that they will put out the necessary effort that is needed. And as I said, there's a lot of time and effort that will be required from the students. So after we have sorted out a project, then we will meet almost on a weekly basis on identifying the problem and then formulating the aims and objectives, because this is very, very critical. Sometimes it might take a long time to finalize these aims and objectives. Weekly meetings maybe for a couple months, and then at the same time the student will be starting to work on their research proposal. So that will take a lot of time, and then the students will be introduced in the lab. Fortunately, in our case, we usually have a very active lab, so the students will be trained by the postgraduate students who have experience or postdoctoral research. Sometimes they might be doing a unique type of, they might be following a unique method that you might have to be there within the lab, in the lab with them as well. But gradually they will develop a skill set so that you need to meet with them less and less. So it will go after a couple of weeks. But then we are often in the lab in any case, so just to check to see that everything is going. From time to time, they may they might be faced with a more serious challenge, as method may not be working. So at that time, to troubleshoot, we will be there almost on a daily basis if needed, to make sure that we resolve whatever issue it is. And then again, once the student, overcome those challenges, they need less individual attention. And then when it comes to writing, this is where we have to spend a lot of time reviewing. So they will send drafts, we would review, and sometimes go back and forth 5, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, but eventually they will get it, right? So that's our system that we particularly use in our lab. Generally once per week on average, but sometimes more, sometimes less.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Prof. Ramlal, yeah.
Okay, I tell my students, do what you love and love what you do. And the people who really is in charge of your research and your progress is you. And so you have to manage me as a supervisor, and you have to know how many times you need to see me to make sure you get the results that you are aiming for. So more than anything else, they manage my time to see them and interact with them. A lot of my students are part-time students, and what we've done is I have 8 MPhil and PhD students at this stage. Most of them have moved into manuscripts rather than thesis, and so it's smaller bites that they could do, and because of that, we interact less often. So I have a student from Cayman Islands. He's Jamaican. He's in Cayman Islands. We meet every 3 weeks or so, and he has progress to show. He knows that he's making progress, and he's aggressive, and he has done 3 published papers, and he has 4 more that he's going to publish, and then he's going to submit. And so that's the kind of thing that we work on. But he's managing me, and he's reaching out to make sure I'm available to support him more than anything else. When a student comes in and says, I am interested in a topic, the first question I ask them, where do you see yourself going with this? How is this going to further empower you to do well in your career? And so you're coming with a degree in aeronautical engineering and you want to do a degree in drone technology. Yes, but where does it take you? Well, you have agricultural engineering or a BSc in agriculture and you want to do something in urban planning. Is this going to take you where you want to go? And so that's the first question. And then once we define that, the next stage is, all right, what exactly do you want to do? And then we do objectives and we do the rest of it. And more intense at the start, but then afterwards, less often. And because they are also working and they may be connecting remotely from other islands.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, professors. That's very, very enlightening. And it's good to hear from all of you because there are, different styles and different ways of mentoring and supervising students. From the graduate studies and research, I would say that we recommend the supervisors usually to meet with the students at least, 1 hour a week, so that, every week, they have communication with the students, with the MPhil and PhD students, and of course, they discuss with the graduate students. So that's our recommendation from the graduate studies and research. With that, we have come to an end of the session. And of course, this is an excellent session, I would say. All professors, they have shared their experience, and I'm sure that you would have enjoyed as well and received a lot of information from our professors. Not only in this forum, but beyond that, if you need any advice from your perspectives, as well as if you wanted to reach out to the professors in the Faculty of Medical Sciences or engineering or science and technology, please feel free to reach out to them, right? To know who are the people working in their field, because we have 2 deans as well as, from the Faculty of Medical Sciences. Feel free to reach out to them and ask them some guidance. And I'm sure that when you send them the email, they will be responding to you. If needed, you can schedule a meeting. Nowadays, it's become very easy to schedule a meeting via Zoom or else through Teams. And therefore, I encourage you to keep in contact with all of the professors that are coming and doing the presentation in the Professorial Mentorship Caucus series. With that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our excellent professors for taking time off from your busy schedule to join this session and share your experience with our researchers. Of course, my special thanks and gratitude to all participants, not only joining these sessions, but also with the other sessions as well. With that, I Wish everyone a wonderful afternoon. Now I end this session here. Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Bye.